morning, everyone, and welcome to the last Sunday service in March. I can't believe that almost the fourth of the year is almost over. And during the holidays, I had suffered from shingles, but now it seems like that was a very long time ago. And it's funny, the older you become, the faster the time goes. So, just a warning for you young folks. But anyways, the Buddha says that the greatest source of our unhappiness comes from our ego self. There is a saying, the grass is greener on the other side. And it is that saying that perfectly describes the mind thought of human beings. Because of our selfish needs, we always think that there's always something better to go after. And when we achieve it, oftentimes we find that it was not what we thought it would be. In other words, having was not the same as wanting. It is like a mirage in the distance. Oftentimes, when we get there, we find that whatever we were seeking really did not exist. Our selfish attitude to feed our insatiable appetite gets us in trouble and causes us grief and suffering. Today's Dharma message is about how the ego self affected one man who thought he had everything, only to be derailed when envy and jealousy reared its ugly head. This family man named Jim received a call from one of his college roommate and dear friend, Charlie Bradley. Charlie was to be interviewed at the local television station, and he wanted to visit his friend Jim later after the interview. That evening, as the family watched the television, they discovered Charlie had become one of the most successful and influential businessmen in the country. Charlie's company was planning to build a steel factory in the city, and this would create new jobs and kickstart the local economy. During the interview, the audience found out that Charlie and his three college roommates, including Jim, were known as the Four Musketeers. Each of Jim's roommates had become highly successful. Besides Charlie, the other two roommates became president of the local college and a well-known foreign news correspondent. Jim was an insurance salesman. At the dinner that evening, Jim talked about his days in college and how proud he was for his three friends. During the conversation, Jim's youngest daughter innocently commented on how her father was the only one of the four men who wasn't well known and did well at not being a success. Although Jim laughed it off, deep down he was disturbed at not being acknowledged as quote-unquote a successful man. The next morning, one of Jim's most important clients visited his office and talked about looking for a person to represent the city on a very prestigious state educational commission. The qualifications they were looking for included someone who was responsible, well thought of in the community, and attractive as the person's picture would appear on newspapers and magazines. Anticipating the offer to be made to him, the client instead asked Jim if he knew of anyone with those qualifications. After being momentarily stunned, Jim said that he would look for such a person. Later that morning, the same client called Jim and told him how upset he was for not letting him know that Jim knew Charlie Bradley. The client begged Jim to talk with Charlie. Jim then called Charlie, and Charlie accepted the offer. Jim left early that afternoon from work to go home because he was upset, noting that their father was very quiet and not his usual positive self. Each one asked how he was doing. Jim irritably answered that he was fine, but asked to be left alone. When his wife asked how he was doing, he exploded. Realizing his dilemma was not his wife's or his children's fault, Jim calmed down. However, the unhappiness remained. After the children left, Jim confessed to his wife that he felt like a failure and that his life was in a rut. After graduating from college, Jim had vowed that he would be going places and setting the world on fire. 20 years later, after hard work, high hopes, and mighty ambitions, what did he have to show for it? All he did was sell insurance to those who lit the world on fire. His wife told him he was trying to measure success only in terms of money and prestige. Those, however, were not the true measurement of success, for his success was as a man, husband, and father. What more did he want in life? Jim said his wife was just prejudiced because she loved him. But his wife replied that she said those things because of the person he was, how he lived his life, and for what he stood for. That evening, Charlie Bradley visited Jim and the family. As the friends talked, Jim found out that Charlie was busy with expanding his business empire, and as a result, there was no time for family. It was then that Jim realized Charlie's way of life came with a heavy price, something that Jim was not willing to pay. Charlie marveled at how comfortable Jim's home was and how contented Jim appeared. Charlie asked him, "You seem so relaxed and so completely satisfied. What is your secret?" Remembering those words his wife had spoken earlier, Jim now knew that he indeed had everything he ever wanted in life. His true self had finally resurfaced, and Jim realized his happiness was more than about his own well-being. It was about sharing his life and being with people he cared for, his family, his community, and his church. You know, within our society and culture, we are always dealing with pressures to be the very best at what we do, and to a certain extent, to be better than others, the competition. Either at school, outside activities, the jobs we work at, and the family we raise. When our fragile ego self is threatened, we tend to overcompensate in our efforts to appear better than we truly are. For some, everything is a challenge, and winning is the only thing that matters. To them, losing is not an option. Winning is the only way to prove to themselves that they are worthy. What they don't realize is that you don't have to win to win. Just enjoy the experience for experience's sake. Enjoy the moment and be thankful for the experience. Measuring success in terms of material possessions or prestige acquired is not the true measuring stick of living a life well lived. We are who we are, imperfect beings. The Buddha teaches us that success, mistakes, and failures are a part of living life, which makes living life both exhilarating and excruciating. So, appreciate those moments of success, but learn from the mistakes and failures to lessen our regrets so that we can continue to move on with our lives. But most of all, treasure life we enjoy our special relationships with family and friends who will always be connected to us in the joyful oneness of our precious world. In closing, please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.